Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started now. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Leonard Bechet, and I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department of the City of Burbank. Tonight's workshop is the second of 3 community workshops that will be held as part of our work on the creation of the Downtown Burbank Transit-Oriented Development, or TOD, specific plan. Tonight, we have several staff members online from the Community Development Department, as well as from our consultant team. I'll go ahead and list off the names so that we may keep the presentation moving forward. From the city, we have Fred Ramirez, Scott Plambeck, Greg Mirza-Avakian, Maciel Medina, and David Kim. And from our consultant team, we have Stefanos Palazoides and Juan Gomez Novi from the firm of Mole and Palazoides. Next slide, please. Before we continue any further, we want to provide instruction to those who may need translation services, which includes an option for Spanish or Armenian. We'll start with Maciel Medina, who will be providing Spanish translation. Maciel, will you explain the instructions in Spanish, please?
Buenas noches, me llamo Maciel Medina. Si desea escuchar la presentación en español, haga clic en el botón que se muestra aquí en la pantalla y selecciona español. También haga clic en silenciar audio original que se muestra con la flecha roja para que solo me escuche hablar en español. Por favor, manda un mensaje usando el botón chat para poder oír la presentación en español. También puede usar el botón que se ve como un mano, raise hand, y alguien te va a responder y te pueden ayudar con la presentación en español. Gracias.
Okay, thank you, Maciel. Now we will hear from Greg Mirza-Avakian, who will be providing Armenian translation. Greg, will you explain the instructions in Armenian, please?
Բարի երեկո, եթե ցանկանում եք լսել ներկայացությունը հայերեն լեզվով, խնդրում ենք սեղմել, բարձրացնել ձեր ձեռքը ներքև կոճակը սեղմեք, եւ եթե ցանկանում եք հայերենով լսել, խնդրում ենք սեղմել ձեր էկրանին գտնվող կոճակին եւ ընտրել ֆրանսերեն լեզուն, հայերենը չկար, խնդրում ենք նաեւ սեղմել կարմիր սլակով ցուցադրված mute original audio-ն։ Շնորհակալություն շատ։ Thank you, Leonard.
Thank you, Maciel and Greg. Our meeting administrator will now turn on the translation and will wait a few moments before proceeding to allow those that need translation to switch over to the desired translated audio feed. So we'll begin in a couple moments.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let everyone know that I will have to momentarily stop sharing the screens. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue. So this evening's workshop is scheduled to last for approximately 2 hours, and we'll start with a brief project overview and presentation of the vision statement and guiding principles, followed by a presentation on the plan framework and key projects. We will provide multiple opportunities for your input and questions throughout the workshop. Next slide. We're hoping that technology runs smoothly tonight for everyone, but please bear with us if we do experience any technical difficulties. As an attendee of this webinar, your video is turned off and your audio will automatically be muted. You will have an opportunity to provide voice comments during the questions and comment sessions. Instructions will be provided at the start of each comment session. You may also leave written comments anytime during the webinar by pressing the chat button in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. This workshop is being recorded and will be available on the Downtown TOD website and also the City of Burbank's YouTube page following the webinar at www.downtownburbanktod.com. Next. Again, you may provide feedback during the question and comment sessions of the webinar. You may submit comments anytime during the webinar by using the chat feature, or you may submit comments anytime via the project website at www.downtownburbanktod.com, or by emailing me, the project planner, at lbechet, L-B-E-C-H-E-T, at burbankca.gov. Due to the amount of time we have for tonight's workshop, we will only be able to take a limited number of live questions and comments. A list of comments and questions, including answers submitted via the chat feature, will be available on the project website at www.downtownburbanktod.com. We've also prepared an interactive survey that may be accessed on the project website. The English version may be accessed starting on January 28th, with Spanish and Armenian versions made available soon thereafter. Next. I will now provide an overview of the project. Next. There are two planning documents in place that guide the land uses for downtown Burbank: the Burbank Center Plan and the San Fernando Boulevard Master Plan, adopted in 1997 and 2012 respectively. While both plans were effective at the time of adoption, they are no longer effective to help the city address the housing and affordability crisis it is currently facing. The city applied for and was awarded grant funding from Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Authority, or Metro for short, and the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD for short, to update and combine both plans to create a new downtown Burbank TOD-specific plan. The city of Burbank ranks high in terms of cost of housing and has one of the lowest vacancy rates in Los Angeles County, making it difficult for Burbank's workforce, individuals, and families of low and moderate income levels to find affordable housing in the city. The city's 45,000 residential units are far below the number needed to house the 130,000 plus people who currently work in Burbank. To meet this scarcity, the City Council has set a goal to introduce 12,000 new dwelling units citywide by the year 2035. This shortage of housing and associated lack of affordability is also an issue of statewide concern. The state has mandated that more housing be produced locally. Burbank's Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA, allocation requires the production of 8,700 units over the next 8 years. Next slide. This long-range planning effort creates an opportunity for the community to re-envision downtown, which is a major employment and entertainment center for the city. Over the last few months, the city has engaged the community and decision makers on developing a shared vision and guiding principles, and over the coming months, we'll continue to engage the community and decision makers as we work collaboratively to create a plan that establishes objective standards and clear community expectations for future responsible development that builds a safe, beautiful, and thriving downtown, while also achieving City Council affordable housing strategies that include building 12,000 units in the next 15 years and meeting state-mandated housing production numbers, thereby reflecting Burbank's unique approach of maintaining local control while helping to build and protect neighborhoods. Next slide. I'll now go over the project schedule. The specific plan preparation process consists of 5 key phases: discovery, visioning, plan preparation, public review of the plan and EIR, and adoption. We are well underway in the process. We have conducted the existing document review and the physical analysis that have informed this presentation and are in the process of finalizing the market, utilities, first, last mile, and parking analyses. This phase included the Discovery Community Workshop, which was presented as part of a study session to the City Council in October 2020 and to the community as part of our first virtual community workshop in November 2020. The Discovery phase will be followed by the Visioning phase, which is what we are presenting on this evening as part of our second virtual community workshop. A combined final alternatives community workshop and environmental CEQA scoping meeting will be held within the next few months. With community and decision maker input, the creation of the specific plan and EIR will begin this spring, with the public review of the two documents occurring towards the end of the summer. Adoption of the specific plan and certification of the EIR is scheduled for winter 2021 and into winter 2022. Next slide, please. The approximately 965-acre plan area is generally bounded by Lake Street, Victory Boulevard, and Mariposa Street to the west, San Fernando Boulevard and Andover Drive to the north, Glen Oaks Boulevard and 5th Street to the east, and Tujunga Avenue and the city boundary to the south. It is divided by the I-5 freeway and the Southern Pacific Railroad right-of-way. Next slide. A draft of the vision statement and guiding principles was presented to both City Council and the community in October and November 2020. Both were well received and used to help us create the plan framework, which we'll be sharing with you this evening. I will now go over both the vision statement and the guiding principles. Next slide. The vision statement reads as follows. A vibrant, urban, transit-oriented, mixed-use downtown of beautiful tree-lined, multimodal streets that are safe and accessible to all, inviting parks and plazas, and beautiful buildings that together create an active and bustling central district surrounded by inviting and genuine neighborhoods. A place where people truly want to live, work, shop, visit, and play. Next slide. And now for the guiding principles. They have been divided into 5 categories: neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, buildings, public realm, streets, and parking. For the neighborhoods, districts, and corridors category, we have protect existing single-family residential neighborhoods, create safe, distinct, beautiful, and thriving neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, and maintain and enhance downtown's prominent shopping and entertainment offerings. For the buildings category, we have promote compact, sustainable, transit-oriented infill development, introduce much-needed housing at all levels of affordability, and design mixed-use buildings with pedestrian-friendly ground floors, street-facing windows and entries, quality materials, and varied massing. Next slide, please. For the public realm category, we have introduce community benefits and public improvements, including parks that support downtown's growing resident, worker, and visitor population, create a safe, pedestrian, and bike-friendly environment with wide sidewalks, generous tree cover, outdoor dining, and safe pedestrian crossings. With appropriate design and safety considerations, use streets and alleys as public space, and conceive of streets as linear parks that connect different parts of downtown and utilize sustainable streetscape design and stormwater capture. Next slide, please. For the streets category, we have balance and enhance pedestrian, bicycle, transit, vehicular, and alternative transportation modes within and to downtown, provide safe and inviting streets for walking, biking, and riding transit while reducing the need for vehicle trips and increasing transit ridership, enhance pedestrian and bike connections across the freeway between downtown and the Metrolink station. And finally, for the parking category, we have implement a range of parking management strategies to ensure parking is available as the plan area develops and intensifies, and provide sufficient public and on-site parking to ensure downtown parking does not spill over into surrounding residential neighborhoods. With that, I will now turn the presentation over to Stefanos Palazoides, who will present the plan framework and key projects. Stefanos, the time is yours. Stefanos, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead and get started.
Juan Gomez Novi.
Thanks, Leonard. That was a propitious beginning, and good evening, everyone. The vision statement and guiding principles that Leonard just described will provide the high-level framework that directs how downtown develops over the next 15 years. The plan framework provides the next level of detail, describing the various individual transformations that will be implemented by the plan. And these are a downtown of diverse neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, a well-connected downtown north-south and east to west, a street network accessible to all, a public realm of streets and parks, and parking for a mixed-use downtown. Let's start with diverse neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. Next, please. Next slide. The general plan rightly calls for the use of specific plans to provide goals and policies that encourage the creation of neighborhoods and districts, each with its own distinct character and sense of place. In addition to neighborhoods and districts, we could also add corridors as an essential component of placemaking. So what are these? A neighborhood is a safe, beautiful, mixed-income place primarily for living that also accommodates work and some retail activity. It is defined by a quarter-mile walking radius from a center, which can be a park, school, store, or public or civic building, and is organized around a public realm of streets and parks. A district is a mixed-use place primarily for commercial and retail activities that can also accommodate living. And a corridor is an important commercial or mixed-use thoroughfare located between neighborhoods and districts. Examples of these here in Burbank are Magnolia Boulevard, a corridor lined by shops, restaurants, offices, and services that passes between the Magnolia Park and Chandler Park neighborhoods to the downtown district. Next, please. The character of each neighborhood, district, or corridor is mostly determined by the set of uses and activities that occur within each of them, the form of buildings and how they face and interact with the street or how they're accessed, and the design of the streets and sidewalks that provide access to buildings. Next, please. Additional defining characteristics are the form, location, type, and access to parking, and the form and type of open space, streets, parks, paseos, and plazas. A downtown district, for instance, is characterized by commercial or mixed-use buildings with retail ground floors located right next to the sidewalk and residential or office uses on upper floors. Sidewalks are wide and street trees are planted in tree wells. Parking is located underground or in a Park One's garage. A downtown neighborhood, on the other hand, is characterized by residential buildings located behind small front yards and accessed via stoops or lobbies. Sidewalks are narrower and street trees are planted in continuous planter strips between the sidewalk and the street. Parking is located at the back of the side of each side and accessed via an alley. Next, please. This map shows the plan area. However, as the relative sizes and spacing between buildings show, various parts in this area are not the same. Next, please. The downtown is comprised of a series of neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. The downtown district is shown in magenta, the North San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood in purple, the South San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood in red, the South San Fernando Boulevard district in brown, the Lake Street neighborhood in gray, the Olive Avenue district in orange, and the Victory Boulevard Creative and Industrial Corridor in yellow. The circles depict a quarter-mile walking radius or pedestrian shed, and the downtown district consists of two such overlapping sheds. The diagram makes it clear how the size of buildings, the relation to one another, and the relation to the street vary from one neighborhood district or corridor to the other. And the locations where buildings are missing in this drawing are generally lots of underutilized land, and most typically in the form of surface parking lots. Next, please. As the previous slide shows, the basic underlying structure of downtown's neighborhoods, districts, and corridors is apparent. What is generally missing in each are the place-making features that are important to them: pedestrian-friendly buildings that face and are accessed from the sidewalk, parking located behind buildings or underground, inviting open spaces, and a complete streetscape. While San Fernando Boulevard in the downtown districts has a well-defined sense of place, many streets within the district lack street trees or are fronted by parking structures, surface parking lots, and buildings with blank walls, as exemplified by this image of 3rd Street pictured here. The existing character of the South San Fernando Boulevard district is similar. The underground structure is there, but the placemaking aspects are absent. The introduction of new, appropriately sized and mass mixed-use and multifamily buildings that engage the sidewalk, along with a robust and cohesive streetscape, will transform these places into memorable ones where people truly want to live, work, shop, visit, and play. Next. The same goes for Olive Avenue, the Olive Avenue district, and the Victory Boulevard Creative and Industrial Corridor. Next. And again, for the North and South San Fernando Boulevard neighborhoods, parking lots in the North San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood are infilled with pedestrian-friendly buildings and inviting streetscapes. New pedestrian-friendly buildings and missing street trees are introduced in the South San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood. Next. And a similar strategy is implemented in the Lake Street neighborhood as well as depicted here. Next, please. So now we would like to hear from you. If you would like to provide comments or questions regarding downtown's neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, please feel free to send a text message by pressing the chat button on your screen. To make a voice comment, please raise your hand by pressing on the participants icon and selecting raise hand. We will answer your questions in the order they are received.
Good evening. As Stefanos mentioned, if you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand button and I will prompt you to unmute yourself to speak. Due to time constraint, you will be able to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. If we do not get to you during this comment period, please submit your comments, questions through the chat icon. There will be time towards the end of tonight's presentation for staff to answer your questions, or if needed, staff will gather and respond to your questions, comments after tonight's presentation. Okay, we will start with the voice comments. Chas Castel, I will allow you to speak. 1 second. You may unmute yourself.
Hey everybody, thanks. This is really interesting. And I missed the beginning of the call, so I apologize if you've already covered this. Are you accepting feedback from the community at this point, or is this as the window for feedback closed?
This presentation is for the purpose of feedback by the community.
Brilliant,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Do you
I
have-
don't have specific feedback, so I just wanted to know whether you're accepting it at this time.
Excellent.
Thanks.
No, this is the purpose of this meeting. Thank you.
And just to add to that response, thank you, Stefanos. There will be additional opportunities to provide comments as we work through the process collaboratively.
Okay, Anthony Rivera, I will allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. I just had a question about the affordable housing. I know Los Angeles is doing something similar in the fact that there is affordable housing. Do you think you guys would adopt something similar to that?
I'll go ahead and fill that one, Stefanos. Yes, we currently do have two kind of processes in the city to allow for affordable housing. The first one is the inclusionary housing, affordable housing requirement that essentially requires any residential project with 5 or more units to provide different percentages of affordable housing. And then the second program we have is the density bonus program, which is going through different iterations right now, and the state has recently made changes to make that more of a robust program. But through those two processes, that's essentially how we're going to be working with this plan to address that need for the affordable housing. But yeah, that will be included in this plan.
And
In
then,
order to have a more constructive discussion tonight, I think you, to the degree possible, should try to concentrate on the material being presented. The housing question is extremely important. It'll be covered later on and in further community meetings. So it's fine that we'll be able to answer some of these comments, but to the degree possible, we should concentrate on the material being presented. Thank you.
understand. You got it.
Okay, so we do have no more raised hands, but we do have some questions in the chat. We'll start with Hank Kaplan. Hank actually had 2 comments, but hoping you can hear us, Hank. Hank's question is, what is the centroid for each of these walk sheds, particularly the 2 overlap walk sheds in the downtown district?
When 2 sheds overlap, typically the centers are in the line that connects them, which in this case would be the existing San Fernando commercial district, which is the heart of your downtown.
Okay. Next question from the chat is from Jay. Will this EIR that will be done actually be followed? The planning department has a habit of ignoring the results. That's why I'm asking.
Leonard, do you want to take that?
Yes, I'll take that. Yes, we will be not only working on the EIR, but we will also be following the EIR. So we will provide opportunities for comments on that process, probably in conjunction with our next workshop. It'll be a combination, 3rd workshop to look at alternatives, and then we'll provide a scoping meeting for the EIR and the environmental process.
Okay, we have one more time for one more question through the chat. This one's from Mary Cotone. The renderings appear to have a specific architectural style. What is the overall plan for the architectural design of the whole of downtown, and how do you get developers to follow suit?
In today's meeting, there's no intention to talk about architectural style. I think that eventually there will be direction given, and that will be followed through the implementation of the plan through city staff in the future. And perhaps Leonard, you might want to answer that question as well.
Yeah, thank you, Stefanos. I also wanted to add that we do have, as I mentioned earlier, a interactive survey that will be made available on the 28th, and that survey actually does have some questions related to the styles of architecture that you all would like to see in downtown, whether it be more modern or more traditional architectural styles. So you can kind of weigh in on that, and as we said before, we'll have additional opportunities to kind of look at the architectural style. But the goal really is to essentially get a set of objective standards that the developers can use to help them determine the types of styles that we want to see in downtown.
And most probably this would have to be diverse because there could not be such a thing as a single style downtown of the size that we're talking about.
Correct. Yeah, there's a very good variety of architectural styles in the city, so it would be probably something that would be diverse, as Stefanos pointed out.
Okay, can we please have the next slide? Thank you. The next component of the plan framework is a well-connected downtown. Currently, existing east-west connections across the freeway, railroad tracks, and the Burbank Channel, and connections to the Metrolink station are substandard and in many cases unsafe for pedestrians and bicyclists. In addition, north-south connections between downtown and the north and south San Fernando Boulevard neighborhoods are incomplete or are hampered by mega blocks, such as the Burbank Town Center Mall. Improving these connections through the introduction of transportation and aesthetic improvements will encourage downtown residents and employees to bike and walk to transit, to daily activities, and to work. Next, please. Here you see the existing connections across the freeway, the railroad tracks and the Burbank Channel. The freeway is shown in solid purple and railroad tracks in dotted purple, and the Burbank Channel in blue. Overcrossings are shown in solid orange and undercrossings in dotted orange. Also shown in dotted blue is the missing San Fernando Boulevard connection through the Burbank Town Center Mall. In the next few slides, I will describe strategies for enhancing these bridges and underpasses, and will describe the concept of connecting through the Town Center Mall later in this presentation. Next, please. First, the bridges. With narrow sidewalks located immediately adjacent to fast-moving vehicles and bridge railings that are uncomfortably low in height, the existing bridges are not particularly inviting for pedestrians and cyclists, hampering the city's goal of improving access between downtown and the Metrolink station, and from one side of the freeway to the other. Next. Similarly, downtown's undercrossings are currently designed for automobiles, not pedestrians or cyclists. Bike lanes are missing, sidewalks are narrow, and they're also located immediately adjacent to fast-moving traffic, and generally lighting is very poor. Next. Improving the environment for pedestrians and cyclists is twofold. First, transportation improvements can be implemented, such as bike lanes that can be introduced there, sidewalks that can potentially be widened, and a barrier that can be introduced to separate pedestrians or cyclists from vehicular traffic. Secondly, aesthetic enhancements can be also introduced, including public art elements, graphics, and improved lighting. Next. Such enhancements may not only improve access across the freeway and railroad tracks, but also transform the bridges into gateway elements that announce to motorists on the freeway that they are passing through Burbank, and those on the bridge that they're entering or leaving downtown. Southern California has a rich history of bridges with such gateway elements, including pylons, light standards, and signage. Elements that could inform improvements to downtown Burbank's bridges. Next, please. Like the bridge crossings, primary underpass enhancements include the introduction of bike lanes and improvements to the pedestrian environment. The two photos on the left show an underpass in Santa Barbara where the sidewalk is not only separated from the roadway by columns and a railing, but is also raised above the roadway. The underpass also includes a dedicated bike lane. Other potential underpass enhancements include the introduction of public art, such as murals or mosaics, and lighting enhancements. Next slide, please. So we've come to the end of this part of portion of our presentation. We would like to hear from you based on the instructions given to you before, and the meeting administrator will continue.
Thank you, Stefanos. As before, if you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand button. I will prompt you to unmute yourself. Again, due to time constraint, you will be limited to 3 minutes. If we don't get to your comment during this time, please send me your comments through your chat icon, and there will be a time towards the end to answer your question, or staff will also gather and respond to your question and comments after tonight's presentation. Okay, so we do have one raised hand so far. Tamala, I will allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Very well, yes.
Great. Thank you for the presentation and for this, particularly this portion around getting around the downtown area and to and from the downtown area from other areas of the city. I particularly like the attention on the Magnolia and the Olive bridges, which, as you mentioned, are unsafe and difficult to get over. My question is, with this portion that you presented, is this going to be integrated with the projected BRT, bus rapid transit project that's coming into Burbank, probably coming into Burbank? Is it also potentially integrated with the upgrades or the implementations that the Front Street project's going to be putting together on Magnolia Park Bridge or Magnolia Bridge? And is this also integrated with the Complete Streets plan that was recently adopted by City Council? And of course, anything, in the future, how is that all integrated together?
Well, it is very much our intention to integrate this work with the work that has been done before. If there are a number of small items that need to be discussed or negotiated or changed, we'll put that forward. But by and large, the work done to date is excellent, and we're intending to follow up on it. You will hear about the rapid bus transit issues in a moment in one of the next presentations on the topics of today, and maybe Leonard can speak about the First Street issues.
Yes, thank you, Stefanos. Yes, this plan is using Complete Streets basically as the foundation for the work that we're proposing having to do with the streets through downtown. So as we saw in the Complete Streets plan, there are a number of projects that they kind of called out. And so we're kind of taking that and extending it as needed throughout downtown to make improvements where necessary. And the same would go for the newer projects that are coming in, the First Street Village project that's on First Street adjacent to the freeway, and also the Front Street project. Those two projects are essentially bringing in some improvements to bicycle and pedestrian right-of-way along those streets. And so this plan will essentially use those kind of as the base as well as we look at finding ways to really create a robust community and public benefits program that we can let the developers know coming in essentially what is expected of them in terms of building in downtown.
Leonard and Stefanos, if I can add, this is Fred Ramirez, city planner. Tamala, to your question on the BRT, I believe when the city submitted comments on the BRT, my counterpart, Assistant Director David Krisky for Transportation Planning, actually made a point to refer to proposed improvements along the Olive Bridge, along the route of the BRT, to be consistent with the Complete Streets plan, including enhancements for bike and ped along that corridor. So wanted to make sure we noted that as well. So in line with your comments, we're ensuring that both agencies using public infrastructure as well as what we're planning have kind of an integrated approach to implement the Complete Streets plan consistent with our general plan as well.
Are there any more comments?
We do have just 3 comments on the chat. I just noticed. I'll just read it out. From Marvin. Love the idea, the bridge enhancement that announced that you're in Burbank. Lighting at underpasses is a must.
Thank you, Marvin.
From Milani. we have thank you for such a nice presentation. It's a great vision for future Burbank. And lastly, we have from Marva Murphy, expense of maintenance of enhancements such as tiles needs to be considered, along with allowing for pass-through of high vehicles such as Rose Float on 12-31.
And David, if I can just jump in, it looks like there was one that we missed. So this is from Jay. It sounds like your entire plan is to make it difficult to park in this new concept of downtown. Is the goal to get rid of all cars in downtown? So we will actually be talking about that coming up very shortly, but just to kind of give a response now, no, we don't want to get rid of cars in downtown. The one thing that we found through this analysis that we've done thus far is that downtown has a plethora of parking. The one thing that can be improved, and this is what we're essentially hoping to do through this process, is to manage that parking better, expand vehicle parking districts as needed, and leverage on existing parking spaces that we have to make it easier for people to come to downtown, find a place to park, and basically, as Stefanos said earlier, park once and basically get around downtown on foot or other modes of transportation until they have to leave. So we'll touch on this further coming up.
Okay, well, we can, if we're done with questions on this portion of the presentation, maybe we can have the next image, please. The next subject, a street network accessible to all, is really particularly important to the future of the downtown. We typically think of streets as being generally for cars. However, in a bustling downtown that's located next to a regional train station, there are additional users to consider. Visitors walking from dinner to a movie, jurors or office workers walking to grab a bite during their lunch break, commuters walking or biking to the Metrolink station, and students biking to Burbank High School, many others. There are also a number of bus routes that pass through downtown. However, introducing bike lanes or painted sidewalks in intersections is really not enough. A number of design elements need to be considered further to ensure that the street network functions for all users, including motorists. These elements include an interconnected and diverse network of streets, short block lengths, streets that accommodate two-way traffic and on-street parking, appropriately sized lane widths, short pedestrian street crossings, ample sidewalks, and generous streetscape, and in places, the flexible use of streets. All these underlying components, all the underlying components for a street network that's accessible to all are present in the downtown. It is built on a traditional interconnected street network, and with the exception of a handful of mega blocks and the interruption of the freeway and railroad tracks, the downtown's block lengths are generally short, except for streets along the freeway and the bridges. Downtown streets are all two-way and are capable of accommodating on-street parking and where appropriate bike lanes. And as we shall see later in the presentation, streets such as San Fernando have the capability to be used flexibly, that is, they can be open to traffic or easily closed for special events. Next image. The character of existing streets in Burbank is varied and diverse, some providing a better environment for pedestrians and cyclists than others. San Fernando Boulevard in the downtown core provides, of course, a very complete pedestrian environment. North San Fernando Boulevard has wide sidewalks, but needs more street trees. Striped bike lanes are provided along most of its length, except for a small portion shown here. South San Fernando Boulevard has been improved with a planted median and new streetscape elements, including new street lights. And neighborhood streets in the South San Fernando neighborhood are missing street trees. Next. Most people are generally comfortable and have the time to walk a distance of quarter mile, which takes about 5 minutes to do so. Distances greater than these necessitate other means of getting around. Bicycles, of course, offer one such alternative. However, bike facilities must be perceived as safe for cyclists to feel comfortable venturing out on the road. Here are some examples of facilities that help cyclists feel safer. Class 1 trails and Class 4 bikeways completely separate cyclists from automobile traffic. Class 2 lanes provide a dedicated lane immediately adjacent to vehicular ones. Class 3 routes are facilities where cyclists share the same lane as cars. The more traffic and the higher the vehicular speeds, the more separation between bike and car is necessary. Next, please. As in the case for cyclists, a safe pedestrian environment will encourage people to walk, whether to accomplish daily activities, to school, or to the Metrolink station. Strategies for achieving this kind of walking include wide sidewalks, ADA-compliant sidewalk extensions, also known as bulb outs, either at intersections or mid-block, which shorten the crossing distance across vehicular lanes, and marked crosswalks, which alert motorists of pedestrian crossing locations. Next. Downtown Burbank is served by a fairly robust transit network, including metro, local, and rapid buses. The Burbank Bus Pink Line, which provides service to Burbank's Media District and Universal Studios. The Glendale B Line, which provides service to Glendale. And of course, Metrolink, which connects downtown Burbank to Ventura County, Lancaster, downtown Los Angeles, and beyond. Next. In addition to existing Metrolink and bus service, Metro is considering introducing bus rapid transit service, also called BRT, between North Hollywood through downtown Burbank to Pasadena. Introduction of a tram or trolley connecting downtown Burbank to the Empire Center, Magnolia Park, or other cities' destinations is also being considered. Next. As is the case with cycling and walking, creating an environment that makes transit easy to find and comfortable to wait for is key to encouraging transit ridership. This includes clear paths of travel, wayfinding signage that not only points the way to transit, but also orients arriving visitors to downtown's various destinations, and bus stops that are comfortable and capture downtown Burbank's or a particular neighborhood's, districts, or corridors' unique character. Next. Other modes of getting around include Uber, Lyft, taxis, and bike sharing, which compete for valuable curb and sidewalk space. Curb space needs to be dedicated to Uber, Lyft, and taxi drop-off and pickup, so vehicles are not stopping in traffic lanes, and bike sharing stations and bike racks need to be located where they're convenient and easy to find, but do not get in the way of pedestrians, parked cars, and the like. It is also important to note that the automobile is still an integral part of downtown. People still need cars to get around, and many visitors and shoppers will arrive via car, but many people that live in downtown or near transit want to get around in ways other than a car. The important thing is to balance these various modes, and in addition to providing these modes, reduce the amount of cars on the road, helping traffic impacts and the amount of parking spaces that are needed. And here we've come to the end of the portion of this presentation on a street network accessible to all, and would very much like to have your questions and your statements.
Thank you, Stefanos. If you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand icon, and I will prompt you to unmute yourself to speak. Again, due to time constraint, you will have a maximum of 3 minutes. If we do not get to your comment during this period, please submit your comment question to the chat icon. There will be time towards the end of the presentation for staff to answer your questions, or if needed, staff will gather and respond to your questions, comments after tonight's presentation. Okay, so we have one raised hand. Tamala, will allow you to speak.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I have a couple questions about the streets accessible to all. One area that I haven't heard yet mentioned is the Glen Oaks area downtown, where there are quite a number of commercial shopping and services, but there is an issue there, as you know, with speeding and around the high school especially. So I'm wondering if this plan also has traffic speeding and safety mitigation so that it's safer for bikes and pedestrians in those areas as well, especially around the high school and the residential areas. And my second question is, I wonder if does this plan also potentially consider simplifying the intersections and street structures in the downtown area? Because some of the intersections are, as a biker or a pedestrian, are difficult to maneuver because of the kind of the orientation of the streets. And then getting from one end or one part of downtown to another can also be complicated simply because the street network is a little complicated. So is there any consideration for simplifying the street network so that it's easier to get around on bike and walking and in a car? Thank you.
Well, we will certainly be following up on the recommendations of the Complete Streets program that has been already established. And it is our intention to be providing you with proposals for the principal streets downtown, following up on the recommendations of this previous plan. And certainly your input about looking at Glen Oaks has been noted, and we're paying particular attention to it.
Yes, thank you, Stefanos. And I'd just like to add, yes, we will be looking at the intersections and streets within downtown, using Complete Streets again as the foundation and the base and the primer of what we look at. But yes, in talking it over with our other departments, we have recognized issues with the intersections, especially around McCambridge Park and the high school. So we will be looking at that, and we'll be ironing out some of those issues through this plan. And the second, I think, comment was just about, can somebody remind me what the second portion of the,
The second half of my question?
Yeah,
Is that what
I
you're
just want to
asking?
make sure I
Yeah,
cover
the
it.
first part was about this speeding and mitigation of traffic around, particularly on Glen Oaks, because that's where the speeding mostly happens, is around there in the high school. But just part of being safe and having accessibility for all modes of transportation is to reduce the risk, like you were saying during this presentation, which is an excellent point, to reduce the risk of when you're getting around on bike and foot, and speeding is one of those risks. So I'm just wondering if there's any inclusion of the Glen Oaks, and speeding mitigation in part of this plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we will be looking at that. And again, in the Complete Streets, I mean, it calls out, especially Glen Oaks, Burbank Boulevard, as the kind of the more vehicular-oriented streets. But we are looking at safety at the intersections, and especially around kind of the nodes like the school and the park, to make it safer for people to access that. And then I think the second part also, now I'm remembering, was just getting around downtown. And that is something that we also be looking at, is trying to develop a wayfinding, whether it be to direct those on bicycle to the various facilities that we have in the city, or just really providing wayfinding for just the different locations in the city. So that is something we'll also look at.
And certainly calibrating modes and balancing them in order to make them safer in the way they both function individually, interact with each other, is going to be very much of a dimension of our work on the transportation front.
We don't have any more raised hands, but we do have a couple of questions on the chat. First one's from Steve Starosm. Are we considering something faster than a trolley-like bus between downtown and Empire Center?
I think at this point, it's really more based on probably a trolley or a bus type system. We're also gonna, as we said before, work with Metro as they propose the BRT. And that will be a little bit more of an express system to get people to other parts of the region and within the city to get them across the city to the media district. So we'll look at different aspects with those.
We do have a comment from Jay. How are you going to get enough room for adding a bike lane, planted median and wider sidewalk, bulb outs where they don't currently exist?
Well, I think the key idea there is that you don't necessarily do the same thing with calming streets down in every case. Sometimes you combine some of these features. Sometimes you use only one. But in every case of almost every major arterial street going through downtown Burbank, there's enough excess capacity to deal with almost every one of these questions of mode balance. So as we go forward and present recommendations to you, you will see that we're trying to both eliminate hazards and increase safety and give character and quality to the streets as necessary by adopting some particular design measure that does both, or some combination of measures that do both of those things.
Yes, thank you, Stefanos. And just to add to that, that is something that we will be working very closely with our Public Works Department, as they are the ones that essentially maintain the streets and provide us with direction in terms of making things safe for the vehicular users. And then also with our Transportation Division, as they are the ones that essentially worked and brought forward the Complete Streets Plan. So essentially what it'll come down to is working collaboratively to kind of determine how we can better use the right-of-way that we have. In some instances, we may not have enough space to accommodate every improvement, but part of that process is looking to see where we can make those improvements. And when we have large-scale projects like the Front Street Project or the First Street Village Project, essentially we have opportunities through those larger projects and the ones that will come in the future to essentially make these complete streets goals, our bicycle goals, and our safety goals a reality.
Okay, if we have no more comments, let's move on to the next item. A public realm of streets and parks. Next image, please. A central component of placemaking is the public realm of streets, parks, and other open spaces. The character of each is defined by the neighborhood, district, or corridor it is in, and vice versa. Streetscape elements include street trees, street furniture, landscape, sidewalks, and building design features such as awnings and arcades. In addition, a variety of parks and plazas need to be conveniently located and accessible to all. Their designs tailored to their location in downtown as well. Green infrastructure that includes the use of stormwater capture and cleansing and native plant and tree species can also be integrated into this public realm. Next image, please. Downtown's existing streetscape varies and consists of robust and mature trees, such as along the San Fernando Boulevard shopping and entertainment district, incomplete streetscapes, such as within the South San Fernando residential neighborhoods, and missing streetscapes, such as along 3rd Street near the Civic Center. In addition, sidewalk widths are adequate in some locations and lacking in others. Next image. The form of the streetscape varies according to adjacent building types and uses, and accordingly can help distinguish a particular neighborhood from an adjacent one. City center streetscapes consist of street trees planted in tree wells and wider sidewalks that can accommodate outdoor activities such as outdoor dining, street furniture, and bike racks. Neighborhood streets, by contrast, consist of tree wells planted in continuous landscape planters and narrower sidewalks. Sidewalks that are too narrow can be widened with introduction of parklets in existing on-street parking spaces. Next. Plan area residents within the northern and southern portions of the plan area are located within a half mile of a public park or recreational space and are therefore consistent with the general plan's goals of providing a community or neighborhood park within 1/2 mile of all Burbank residents. This central portion of the plan area, bounded roughly by Olive Avenue, the I-5 freeway, Burbank Boulevard, and Glen Oaks Boulevard, however, lacks sufficient open space. And this is something we have to attend to. Next. Aside from meeting general plan open space goals, as more people live and work downtown, places will be needed for people to get sunshine and fresh air, to walk their dog, for their kids to play. These spaces can also provide venues for special activities and festivals. Open space types could vary from urban plazas to parks, to neighborhood pocket parks, to paseos. And this is the end of our presentation on this, on the subject of the public realm. Again, we would love to have your responses and your questions.
Thank you, Stefanos. If you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand icon, and I will prompt you to unmute yourself to speak. Due to time constraint, you will have a maximum of 3 minutes. If we don't get to your comment during this period, please submit your comments, questions through the chat icon. There will also be time towards the end of tonight's presentation for staff to answer your questions, or if needed, staff will gather and respond to your questions and comments after tonight's presentation. We don't have any raised hands or comments yet. We can give another 30 seconds. Okay, we have received one comment from Marvin. One good thing to come from COVID was shutting down downtown San Fernando Boulevard to automotive traffic. It should replicate 3rd Street Promenade or Lincoln Way in Miami Beach with dining, entertainment, etc.
We will be talking about this issue following. I would say certainly that the COVID situation was a wake-up call in terms of the way in which we relate to open space and to public space, open space in the city, and to the public realm in general, whether it's in streets or in parks. And certainly we'll be taking this subject very, very seriously in this plan as we discussed in this latest portion of the presentation, both in the way in which we allow buildings and sidewalks to relate to each other, ways of reaching out into streets, and also in the design of and maintenance of new parks.
Okay, we don't have any more comments at this point.
Thank you all. Let's move on to the next section. Parking for a mixed-use downtown. The specific plan will propose a number of parking design and parking management strategies that together will promote a vibrant, walkable downtown experience and ensure enough parking is available as downtown evolves and intensifies in use over time. Chief among these are on-street parking and curbside management. Retaining on-street parking where it currently exists, introducing it where it's missing, and managing its relationship with other curbside uses such as loading zones, Uber, Lyft, taxi, and valet pickup and drop-off locations, and bus stops. Other strategies include expanding downtown's existing Park One's district to include more garages and parking lots that accommodate shared parking for downtown's retail, restaurant, and entertainment uses, and that encourage patrons to park once and take care of multiple activities. Others are implementing measures that manage parking supply and demand, including time limits, flexible pricing, monthly permits, and the like. And finally, instituting transportation demand management strategies that promote alternatives to getting to and from downtown in a car, thereby reducing the number of parking spaces that are needed. Ride shares, partnering with Uber and Lyft to subsidize employee trips, and bike share. Next, please. On-street parking provides convenient parking in front of stores and residences, provides a barrier between pedestrians on the sidewalk and vehicles on the road, and generally helps reduce the number of parking spaces that are needed in off-street parking garages and lots. In this diagram, on-street parallel parking is shown in green, angled parking in blue, and locations where parking is not allowed in orange. As you can see, there are substantial locations, especially in downtown's core, where on-street parking is not permitted. Next. Though it might sound counterintuitive, on-street parking together with buildings that face it and access from a sidewalk are key factors that can create pedestrian-friendly environments and for generating a sense of place, as the stark contrast between the photos on the left and on the right indicate. Next image. Accounting for proper design and safety considerations, this plan will recommend that on-street parking be introduced along streets where it's missing, particularly along frontages where new pedestrian-oriented development is introduced. Next. While on-street parking is integral to the generation of a pedestrian-friendly environment and to a sense of place, off-street parking, located immediately next to the sidewalk, is not. These photos show examples of streets facing parking facilities within the within the plan area. Next. There are a number of simple retrofits that can improve these conditions, including converting the ground floor of a parking garage to retail, restaurant, office, or even residential space, and introducing hedges or low walls in front of surface parking lots. Next. To ensure a pedestrian-friendly environment, to ensure that a pedestrian-friendly environment is preserved or generated, new off-street parking needs to be located subterranean at the center of the block or behind occupied retail, restaurant, office, or residential space. On the left of this image are lined parking garages that are located behind thin retail and office liners. The top right photo shows the entrance to a subterranean parking garage. The bottom right photo shows a parking court at the center of a building parcel. Next. The existing parking district downtown is bounded by 3rd Street, Angelino Avenue, 1st Street, and Magnolia Boulevard. Garages and lots within this district are shown in dark purple. Garages and lots that could potentially be incorporated into the district are shown in light purple. These include the parking facilities of the Burbank Police and Fire Headquarters Building, the Burbank Administrative Services Building, the Burbank County Courts Building, and the Burbank Town Center garages. Parking for new retail, restaurant, and entertainment uses within the district could be accommodated within these shared facilities. Parking management strategies will be a key to facilitating shared parking opportunities and will be discussed in the next workshop. This brings us to the end of this portion of the presentation, and we would welcome your comments and questions.
Thank you, Stefanos. If you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand icon, and I will prompt you to unmute yourself to speak. Again, due to time constraint, you will be limited to 3 minutes. If we don't get to your comments at this time, please submit your comments and questions through the chat icon. There will be time towards the end of tonight's presentation for staff to answer your question, or if needed, staff will gather and respond to your questions and comments after tonight's presentation. We do have one raised hand. Tamala, I will allow you to speak.
Great, thank you. Thank you for this portion of the presentation, and I recognize that you just mentioned that you will have more about parking in particular at the next presentation, but I wanted to just put in a couple things to think about for the next time. One is a consideration for employee parking versus guest parking and drop-off pickup curbside usage, because some of the street parking is used for employee parking, or some of the first floor garage parking is used for employees park there and then take up the space for the whole day. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to incorporate that to increase the access to parking for guests and for drop-off and pickup. And then the second thing to consider too is I love the idea earlier you mentioned about using some of the space as a flexible event space and being able to use it as streets at some point and then event space for other points. In the past, when our downtown has been used for events, it sometimes parking becomes very challenging. And I think that we could potentially look at ways to create easier access to the events that are downtown without having to park there, maybe having either off-site parking in another part of the town that gets shuttled in, or increasing Uber usage or something like that. But just putting it out there that event parking or peak time parking, there might be other ways to mitigate it versus just making more parking. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that there are ways of managing employee parking, and there will definitely be recommendations in the plan on that subject. This is going to be a part and parcel of the overall parking management operations that we are going to recommend. And then on the question of special event parking, there will be some points made about that as well, because one of the key issues about parking in a downtown is that it should not be too much or too little. It has to be just right. And that means that it should be able to accommodate every potential set of uses and events downtown, from the most, for the moments that are least use, let's say, and the ones that are part of major events and gatherings. And therefore, the notion of bringing people somehow from further apart, from further away through some permanent or temporary transit is probably one of the ways of thinking about how to deal with special events and the overall provision of parking. It's a very touchy subject, and it will be definitely much further and deeper developed, and you will hear a lot more about that from our transportation consultants as well.
I don't see any further hands raised or comments in the chat box.
All right. Well, maybe we can proceed to the next part of our presentation, which is it goes beyond the various elements of layers of how we might be planning downtown to potential key projects. So if we can have the next image. So up to now, we've generally described the components of the public realm: streets, streetscape, parks and plazas, transit and public parking, and how they help support a vibrant mixed-use environment while contributing to a memorable sense of place. Now we'll describe some of the key projects that are envisioned to unfold during this 15-year horizon of the plan. We will be talking about the introduction of incremental infill, restoring street and pedestrian connections through the mall site, expanding the Civic Center, redeveloping the North San Fernando neighborhood, creating the Olive Avenue TOD district, and preserving and enhancing the San Fernando Boulevard restaurant, retail, and entertainment district, your existing center of downtown. Next, please. So the first subject is introducing incremental infill. This is a complex and interesting subject that we'll pursue in design for the next workshop. Here, I would like to reiterate that one of the key goals of the specific plan is to enable and encourage the introduction of housing within the city of Burbank, including within the downtown area, in order to meet state housing mandates and to rebalance Burbank's jobs to housing ratio. This is a reiteration because, as Leonard mentioned, the state is requiring that 8,700 new units be introduced in Burbank over the next 8 years. In addition, the City Council has set a goal of introducing 12,000 new housing units by the year 2035. In the slides that follow, I will describe how this housing, along with office, retail, and other commercial uses, could be introduced in the plan area while still facilitating the building and the protecting of the neighborhoods that surround it. The next slide shows how and where this new development will be accommodated. On the left, in red, are sites that developers have already submitted applications to the city to build housing, hotel, and commercial uses on. Construction of these projects could begin within the next year or two. In the middle, though, are sites that are generally underutilized and primed for development either because they're owned by a single property owner or have uses on them that are ready to transition to better performing ones, or they're sites that are owned by the city of Burbank. These are the opportunity sites. On the right are the additional parcels that could develop over the course of the plan. These tend to be smaller, have better performing uses, or uses that must remain until replacement locations can be found, such as city-owned public parking lots, for example, but nevertheless have some potential for intensification and for redevelopment. Next. Regarding the amount of housing that is developed under this plan, it will be governed by the densities allowed by the current adopted general plan. Here you see the current general plan land use map, which, among other things, governs how many units can be built on a particular parcel. The legend shows the residential densities that are allowed within each land use according to the general plan. Next. This slide illustrates what each density value may look like. The 27 dwelling unit per acre project, shortened to DU per acre, is a 2 to 3 story project located on South San Fernando Boulevard near IKEA. The 43 DU per acre project is a 3-story multifamily building in the residential neighborhood just to the east. The 58 DU per acre project is the 4-story Avalon Burbank project located along San Fernando Boulevard just south of the downtown shopping and entertainment district. And the example of an 87 DU per acre building is a mixed-use building at Pasadena's Del Mar Gold Line Station. Next image. So we have seen potential locations where infill could occur, general locations, along with the size of buildings that could be introduced there. The following are some initial concepts for how some of these opportunity sites can infill. The first being the Burbank Town Center area, which includes the Burbank Town Center Mall and the old IKEA building site. Next. Historically, San Fernando Boulevard ran uninterrupted through downtown Burbank. Extending San Fernando Boulevard through the mall site, either as a vehicular street or a pedestrian paseo, would provide a crucial north-south connection between a future North San Fernando neighborhood to downtown. Other potential interventions include introducing an urban park or plaza surrounded by ground floor retail and restaurants, introducing housing per densities allowed by the general plan, building office buildings along First Street and adjacent to the I-5 freeway, and retaining the existing multi-level parking garages. Keeping the parking garages may create new shared parking opportunities and means that the $25,000 to $50,000 per stall that we normally be spent to build each new parking space can be spent on important placemaking features such as open space, streetscape, and beautiful buildings. The conceptual images illustrate the types of buildings, streets, and open spaces that may be used to envision the site. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the potential project of expanding the civic center of the city. The civic center expansion could include a new central library, additional administrative office space, a civic park or plaza that is designed to conform to the site's existing topography, and a new parking garage. New housing could also be incorporated within the civic center area, including the existing central library site once the new library is built, or a new library is built. Parking for the civic center will be coordinated with the overall downtown parking management strategy. Finally, the civic park or plaza or a separate transit plaza will ensure easy access to Metro's proposed Bus Rapid Transit line, which includes a proposed route along Olive Avenue adjacent to the Civic Center. Next, please. Next, please. Next slide. The North San Fernando Boulevard area contains many underutilized opportunity sites outlined in red that were identified earlier. While currently it is generally automobile-oriented in character, most buildings are set back from the sidewalk behind parking lots or face the street with blank walls. The area possesses the basic building blocks of a vibrant neighborhood. This include McCambridge Park, which provides open space and recreational facilities nearby these potential residential sites, Burbank High School and two supermarkets, the proximity of downtown shopping and entertainment district, and the potential of San Fernando Boulevard becoming a neighborhood main street that provides neighborhood serving retail and services. This is a very strong potential site for a neighborhood development. Next. The transformation of the North San Fernando area is achieved primarily by infilling the underutilized opportunity sites with pedestrian-oriented residential and mixed-use buildings up to 5 stories high, breaking up the large blocks by introducing new streets, for instance, extending Walnut Avenue to 3rd Street or Delaware Road or Cornell Drive to Scott Street, and build upon existing roadway improvements along North San Fernando Boulevard and introduce streetscape and first last mile improvements to enhance access to McCambridge Park, Burbank High School, the 2 grocery stores, downtown, and the Metrolink station. Next. The proposed Olive Avenue district is located west of the freeway. It contains the Burbank Downtown Metrolink station, the City of Burbank power plant, and a variety of commercial, light industrial, and media-related uses, including the Nickelodeon studio. Important streets include Magnolia Boulevard, Olive Avenue, Victory Boulevard, and Lake Street. The Burbank Channel, flanked by a bike trail, is a potential resource, recreational resource that runs through the district. Next, please. The district is envisioned to infill over time with office buildings that support creative and media-related uses. Mega blocks and large parcels may allow streets to be introduced that are lined with trees, street trees and buildings that face and are accessed from the sidewalk. Parcels adjacent to the Burbank Channel may be infilled to introduce open space that relates to the Burbank Channel bikeway. And as the district intensifies, Victory Boulevard can become the district's main street, providing retail and services within walking distance of new development. Next, please. Lastly, and most importantly, San Fernando, the San Fernando Boulevard is the heart of downtown. Preserving and enhancing this, its status is key. It is your current downtown. It is a popular regional destination due to its wide array of shops, restaurants, and entertainment venues, as well as its strong sense of place. As the current closure to traffic to enable outdoor dining during the COVID pandemic demonstrates, the street can be used flexibly and to advantage. Following are some alternatives for enhancing Burbank's most important downtown place and destination, one could say as well. Next, please. This alternative one, keeps San Fernando Boulevard as a two-way street, retaining the existing angled parking on both sides of the street, enabling patrons to continue to find convenient parking in front of stores. Existing sidewalks are enhanced, and where additional space is needed, parklets, low platforms built to sidewalk level, atop select parking spaces are introduced to accommodate outdoor dining or an informal space for resting or gathering. Under this scenario, San Fernando Boulevard could be closed for special events such as Farmers Market or Burbank's annual car show, or even during certain days or times of the week, particularly on weekends and in the evenings. Key to enabling this flex use concept is the incorporation of features such as removable or retractable bollards that make it quick and easy to open and close the street. Alternative 2. Next, please. This alternative, identified as a priority project in the recently adopted citywide complete streets plan, consists of converting traffic flow along San Fernando Boulevard from a two-way, one lane in each direction, to a one-way northbound in a single lane. The extra space that is gained by removing this travel lane is transferred to wider sidewalks. Angled parking is retained and more street trees are introduced. And next, the third and last alternative is harkening back to Burbank's Golden Mall, permanently closing San Fernando Boulevard to vehicular traffic. The scenario, however, is not recommended for the following reasons. It precludes patrons from finding convenient parking in front of stores, especially during non-peak times of the day, such as mornings. It eliminates the drive-by visibility of business along, it eliminates the drive-by visibility of businesses along San Fernando Boulevard, which can particularly handicap mom and pop businesses. It removes the passive security of the eyes on the street of passing vehicles during non-peak times, and especially at night. And finally, a pedestrian-only environment can be generated in alternatives 1 and 2 temporarily by closing the street down for special events and or during certain times of the day, week, or year. So these are our areas of focus for future design proposals on the planning of particular areas for development within the lifetime of the plan. And now we would like to have your comments and your impressions, please.
Thank you, Stefanos. If you would like to make a voice comment, please press the raise hand icon, and I will allow you to unmute so you can speak. You can also provide your comments and questions in the chat icon. Due to time constraint, if we do not get to you, there will be time after the presentation where we can gather your questions and comments to answer them. Don't see any raised hands or any comments on the chat box.
Leonard, if there are no comments, we might want to wait for a couple of minutes and have you give us some final thoughts.
Yeah, we can wait a couple more moments. I don't want to cut off. We are early, so we do have time. If anybody has any comments or any questions they want to ask, so we'll wait a couple more minutes before we move to close the webinar.
Absolutely.
Leonard, we do have a comment on the chat.
Okay.
Great. Let's take it.
Okay, so this comment is from Jay. It's a We will be given an opportunity to give feedback as this concept progresses correct, especially regarding design choices.
Yes, there will be opportunities for comments and weighing in from not only from the decision makers, but also from the community at large. So we will have that in coming workshops.
Okay.
Particularly in a third one coming up, right?
Yes, correct. And even as we get into the kind of the plan, we start writing the plan out. Before we get to the point to where we have to make a decision, it will be vetted through the public and through our decision makers as well. So there will be plenty of additional opportunities to provide comments. And again, I just want to remind everybody, I have been going through personally and taking up the comments that we receive from the website and making sure to put those that request to be put on our mailing list on the mailing list. So those of you that have signed up, if you signed up just recently, you won't see anything until probably the next milestone of the project. But I want to thank everybody that's been submitting comments and sending us information for feedback. Okay.
We do have one raised hand. Paul Herman, I will allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So is this a part of the presentation where we can talk about housing a little bit? Because I know that was kind of brought up with the dwelling units.
Yeah, we can go ahead and we'll take the comment. If we're unable to answer it, we will definitely take it down for consideration as we move towards that direction.
So do we have are there any plans yet to increase the allowable density, from what's currently existing?
We don't have anything concrete as of yet. That definitely is an option that we have through this process to kind of rearrange the land use through the general plan, because that's essentially what dictates the densities for the residential development.
No, absolutely. And, with the cost of land and the cost of construction in Burbank, I know a lot of, we may be looking at this could all be for naught unless, you're able to entice developers to, be able to build enough units to justify the cost of actually redeveloping in downtown Burbank. So that's something I think that needs to be taken into consideration. The other thing I wanted to mention is, with this specific plan, when it's completed and approved, are you guys hoping that we can have a plan that, let's say a builder or developer comes and they conform with the plan entirely? Can they do a project that is subject only to ministerial review, meaning that it doesn't have to go in front of the planning commission or the city council for approval, regardless of the size of the project?
Yes, that is one of the goals of this process, is to get projects that we can take through a more streamlined process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Leonard, we had a few comments.
I would like to return to the question of density for 1 second, please, if I may.
Yes.
Actually, increasing the density is not the ultimate solution to every development problem. And I would like to suggest at least a couple of issues related to increased density. One of them is that a higher number of units on a given site might necessitate a larger investment of monies into garages, either above or below ground, which very often end up making projects more expensive. And the other one is that there is a threshold also after which projects cannot be built in type 5 construction, in wood frame construction. And that also is an important threshold because beyond that kind of construction, projects get significantly more expensive as one is getting through to mid-rise or high-rise construction. So there are there's a combination of factors, including increased density, that can render more housing, but increased density by itself is not the single metric that determines how many units are being built in a downtown of this kind.
Leonard and Stefanos, if I can just add, I think to Paul's point though that there's going to be a lot of things at play, both the urban design concepts that we talked about tonight, as well as kind of a fiscal analysis of the specific plan effort that's currently underway. And that'll be, as we develop the plan itself, we'll be looking at those factors. So whether there's the ability to streamline applications and facilitate housing consistent with the council's goal of building 12,000 units over the next 15 years, as well as looking at the feasibility of the mix of housing, and also accounting for the fact that there's a lot of legislative bills that are going through the process at the state level, including updates to state density bonus law that have actually upped the percentage of housing that can be built going forward. So in particular, AB 2345 has pushed up some of the numbers. So before we used to look at 35% density, there are potential opportunities for people to look at higher numbers with associated increased affordability of housing units. So there's a lot of things at play, but we will be engaging the community and elected officials and boards through this process. I think there was a question, and I'm going to jump the gun a little bit, but there was a question about, is this the last workshop? We have a third workshop, but then in addition to that, there's also what we would call community meetings before the board, and then ultimately public hearings with board and council. So there are going to be additional opportunities once we make the plan available, which we're still far from that. We're still taking input, and we'll be doing that at the subsequent workshop. But beyond that, at the public meetings before the board and the council, will also be taking input once again. So it's not the end of the opportunity to comment. Really, it's just we benefit from the input at these different workshops to help formulate a draft of that plan to then present to the public for additional review.
Thank you. We do have a few comments. I'll read one. The first one is from Tamala Takahashi. How many more public meetings will there be? And will there be a series of stakeholder meetings like what was done with the complete street plan?
Yeah, so just to kind of add to that, Fred touched on that. We're at the point now in this process where we're looking to kind of develop a strategy to take us into the plan preparation. So I don't yet have an exact number of meetings that we'll have, but there'll definitely be the third workshop coming up. And then as Fred brought up, meetings preceding our public hearings. And we're looking to have opportunities for public reviews once we get a draft of the plan together. And we'll probably have a meeting to take comments and feedback on that. So there will be plenty more opportunities for comment on this process.
The second comment is from Jay. Do I understand correctly that the city is thinking of getting rid of the mall?
So that's an interesting question. I mean, the city doesn't own the mall property. It's a private property. But what we did see as an opportunity in this plan was looking ahead in the next 15 years at the potential for retail and just the potential of that mall site. And so we wanted to essentially build that into this plan to kind of get a process so that we could start rethinking how we want to deal with that property moving forward. There's definitely been projects that have been proposed for that site, especially north of the mall site and the old IKEA site, where we were looking at wanting to accommodate additional housing and trying to open up that particular area. That project is now on hold, but it is something that could come back. So at this point, we're not saying in this hearing that we're going to get rid of the mall, but it essentially gives us an opportunity to think ahead as that property develops and changes over time, and have a plan in place that will guide the development and the activity that we want to see in downtown through this process.
I think it'd be fair to say also, Leonard, that this plan does not take land from anybody, does not build in other people's places, does not imply that the city is going to develop anything of this kind. It is just a way of generating a regulatory environment that can incentivize people to do certain things by putting the right zoning framework in place and the right process, as was discussed a minute ago. So this kind of anticipatory thinking that we're doing on the mall is just nothing more than that.
Okay, so we do have a comment from Paul Herman. I feel downtown Burbank is suitable for type 3 mid-rise construction.
Yeah, so that is something we're looking at, the heights of buildings, and that will be something that will be presented in the next workshop.
I don't see any further comments at this point.
Okay, well, we'll wait a couple more moments before we close out. I again thank you all for being with us this evening and listening to our presentation, and I appreciate the comments and the questions. It all goes to help us continue to work on this project with you. Go to the next slide. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and close this out tonight. So I did see some comments here. Thank you for your answers, and thank you. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody. This is definitely a first for us in this process. With our long-range planning projects that we're going through, it makes it a little bit harder to not be able to talk to each of you in person like we typically do. But we've tried our best, and I feel we've gotten some very good feedback and some good comments and questions generated this evening. So with that, I will go ahead and just make an announcement that we do have a survey, an interactive survey that will be up on the website probably starting January 28th, and it'll be up until about February 12th. We have it in English, and then soon thereafter, once we get the English one up and running, we'll also have a Spanish version and an Armenian version. So I encourage everybody to continue to visit the website, and I encourage everybody to take that survey. That will essentially have some information from tonight, but also starts to get into just some of the design questions that we did get this evening. So with that, I will say good night to everybody. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good night, everyone.